Good afternoon, everyone. Hi. I am Ray Koenig. I am the president of the Chicago Bar Association, as well as a partner at Clark Hill. Welcome to the Chicago Bar Association's 2023 Justice John Paul Stevens Awards ceremony. We look forward to celebrating the awards with you today, as we also continue celebrating the CBA's 150th anniversary and the CBF's 75th anniversary. I'd like to kick things off by introducing our honored guests at the head table, including from my far right, if I don't mess this up, CBA Secretary Trish Rich, Honoree Patricia Brown Holmes, Honoree Mary Smith, Circuit Court of Cook County Chief Judge Tim Evans, Honoree Dan Coten. I believe Justice Neville is on his way, so you can all applaud when he walks in. I'm sure he'll appreciate that. And then from my far left, CBA Executive Director Beth McMean. Honoree Barry Taylor. CBA First Vice President John Shikoda. Honoree Professor Ann Lucine. Illinois Supreme Court Justice Joy Cunningham. United States District Court Chief Judge Rebecca Paulmeyer. And CBF President Kenya Jenkins Wright. I'd also like, and if you get to hold your applause to the end on this one, but to acknowledge our distinguished guests in attendance today. If you could stand to be recognized when I announce your position. State and federal judges. I know you're out there. Elected officials. You're not here. Past CBA presidents, there's a number of you here. Stevens Award Committee members, please stand. And then, last but not least, past Stevens Award winners. Thank you to all of our guests for joining us for this celebration. The Stevens Awards were established in 2000 and are named in honor of Chicago native, CBA member, and former U.S. Supreme Court Justice John Paul Stevens. Justice Stevens retired from the High Court in 2010 after 35 years of distinguished service. Unfortunately, he passed away in 2019. The Stevens Award is presented annually to lawyers and judges in recognition of their outstanding character and commitment to community. Selected by the CBA and the CBF, these honorees exemplify the highest personal integrity and devotion to public service, just as Justice Stevens did. We are very, very pleased that you've joined us today to honor and celebrate Dan Boho, Patricia Brown Holmes, Dan Coten, Professor Ann Lucine, Mary Smith, and Barry Taylor. Like past Stevens Award recipients, this year's honorees are among the finest in the legal profession in Chicago, and that's saying a lot in this room. We are pleased to recognize this tremendous slate of lawyers for the substantial impact they've made on our legal community and certainly in their respective careers through their unwavering commitment and service to the CBA and to the communities in which they reside and work. I can also tell you from personal experience and my observations as a lawyer over the last 24 years, each and every one of these honorees benefited from and practice inclusion in every leadership role, an issue which is near and dear to my heart and a theme central to my bar year. Now, before we hear from our Stevens Award recipients, please join me in welcoming Kenya Jenkins Wright, President of the Chicago Bar Foundation.
Thank you so much, Ray. My name is Kenya Jenkins Wright, and I am proud to be this year's president of the Chicago Bar Foundation. I would like to join my friend and CBA counterpart, Ray Koenig, in welcoming you to today's event to celebrate today's outstanding honorees and Justice Stevens' long and distinguished career and the great legacy he left to our profession, our justice system, and our country. This is a special year for this luncheon as the CBA is celebrating its 150th anniversary and the CBF is celebrating its 75th anniversary. I am proud to be serving as CBF president in this special anniversary year for both organizations, and thank you all for all that you do to make the good work of the CBA and CBF possible. As many of you know, the Stevens Awards was conceived by Justice Stevens' former law clerks, the CBA and the CBF, as a tribute to the justice to honor those attorneys who best exemplify the justice's commitment to integrity and public service in the practice of law. As the charitable arm of the CBA is committed to carrying on Justice Stevens' commitment to the noblest traditions of our profession by working to ensure that our justice system is fair, accessible, and equitable for everyone in our community. Justice Stevens has left us with many great legacies that will continue to inspire us for years to come. His legacy of pro bono and public service in his career, both as a practicing lawyer and as a judge, will continue to serve as a great inspiration to all of us in the legal community to step up our leadership in the fight to fulfill our nation's fundamental principle of equal access to justice for all. I know that most of you are already strong supporters of the work that the CBF does. Thank you for that. For those of you who have not gotten involved yet, I hope you will join me and your many other esteemed colleagues in taking a leadership role in this cause that is so fundamental to who we are as a profession. You can learn more about getting involved and contribute online at chicagobarfoundation.org. And thanks for all that you do to make the CBF's work possible. I look forward to working with you all in the coming year as this year's CBF president. Congrats again to today's honorees, and I hope you enjoy the program. I'll now turn it over to CBF President Koenig.
Thank you, President Jenkins-Wright, for your remarks. Before we break for lunch, for a brief lunch, I want to do two things. I want to thank the CBA and CBF staff who made this possible today. So thank you for your hard work. And as importantly, I want to acknowledge and thank the fantastic wait staff here at the Union League Club for everything you do for us. So thank you. Now enjoy your lunch, and we'll be back in probably about 10 minutes. Thank you. Now that we've enjoyed lunch, or some of us are still enjoying lunch, let's resume our program with introductions of our 2023 Stevens Award recipients. Everybody has a program that has their full bios. I encourage you to read that. I'm going to introduce each honoree in alphabetical order, and then we will play their video remarks, pre-recorded video remarks. And once the video is over, I'll ask the honoree to join Kenya and me on stage to receive their award. Our first honoree, and again, this is in alphabetical order, is Dan Boho. Dan has practiced with Hinshaw and Culbertson since his start as a summer associate. It's like 3 or 4 years ago, I think. Dan served on the executive committee at Hinshaw for 33 years, as in his 35th year as a practice group leader of the personal injury defense practice. Dan has volunteered on numerous boards, including the CBA, where he served as volunteer general counsel, a board member, and an officer. Dan is off enjoying a much-deserved vacation in Egypt, and his daughters Courtney and Ashley will be accepting the award on his behalf. But first, Dan's video.
Justice Stevens was known for integrity and collegiality. I'll address collegiality in relationships in my practice. Joe Power was a close friend coming out of Loyola Law School. He and I discussed trials and cases very intensely. We didn't care that one of us played offense and the other played defense. Starting with a friend on the other side made friendships across the aisle very natural. As a 4-year associate, I had a first chair with Phil Corboy. That case gave me a directed verdict for my client and a lifetime mentor for me. Phil didn't care about what side of the V you were on, and instead focused on helping advance lawyers in the profession. Next came my good friend Bob Clifford in the Hancock scaffold case that he handled with Tim Tomasik, in the 69 West Washington case that Bob handled with Kevin Durkin and Dan Coten. Side note, Dan Coten has delivered significantly for a number of bar associations across the scope, and Judge Holmes was a charismatic president of the CBA with heart. They are my friends, as is Mary Smith, and I'm honored to be a recipient with them. I tell all of my opponents my enemies are frenemies, and defense lawyers are some of my closest friends. In organizations, first comes the CBA. It is truly a cool lawyers club where I met others across the practice and gained a lot of professional friends. My favorite moment in the CBA occurred at a reception for Justice Sandra Day O'Connor. I said, Justice, I would like you to meet Judge Arnett Hubbard, who testified on your behalf at your confirmation hearing before the United States Senate. The American College gave me colleagues across the country as I practice out of a suitcase, and my state chair predecessor, Bill Conlon, was a great role model. I was nominated to the college by Phil Corboy and seconded by Joe Power, going right back to those early friendships I talked about. The Society of Trial Lawyers is made up of plaintiff and defense personal injury lawyers, alternating leadership every other year. Its main function is to have a black tie dinner where plaintiff and defense lawyers break bread with opponents and with their spouses and significant others. How can that not truly advance collegiality? My firm, Hinshaw and Culbertson, has been a stalwart since I was a summer associate. At Hinshaw, we like practicing together and help one another without question. My assistant Sharon saves me at least once every day. And finally, my family supported my practice, and it became part of our lives. Sherry was honored in 1999 with the Women's Bar Women of Vision Award, along with the Dean of DePaul's Law School. I'm finally catching up with her, even if it took a couple of decades. She is amazing. My daughter Courtney was a 40 under 40 in Chicago Lawyer Magazine at 29. And my daughter Ashley is a director for a top LA advertising agency and still is friends with about half the people in this room. All of these relationships and collegiality make my practice personally rewarding. Thank you for this honor.
Just on behalf of my father, Dan, he's humbled and honored, and we are very proud. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next honoree is the Honorable Patricia Bron Holmes. Judge Holmes is a former state court judge, experienced prosecutor, and defense lawyer. She has truly done it all. She is the first Black woman to manage and have her name on the door of a national law firm that is not women or minority owned. She's known for her dedication to advancing diversity, equity, and inclusion in the legal profession, and we were very fortunate to have her serve as president of the CBA in 2015 and 2016. I am very pleased to present Judge Holmes.
Good afternoon. I'm deeply honored and grateful to accept one of the Justice John Paul Stevens Awards from the Chicago Bar Association today. As we all know, Justice Stevens was a hero in the legal world. To be recognized for having the same kind of dedication to public service and pursuit of justice, fairness, and the rule of law is mind-blowing. One merely has to review the list of past recipients, which includes many of my dear friends and mentors, too numerous to name, as well as my law partner and role model, Ron Safer, to understand the magnitude of this honor. I am humbled to be included among today's list of recipients and am reminded of the immense responsibility that comes with receiving an award named after someone like Justice Stevens. Just as when I became president of this great bar association, I understood the magnitude of following in the footsteps of my dear friend and mentor, Justice Joy Cunningham, the first Black female president of this bar association. This award reminds us that our society is facing a lot of challenges that are complex and evolving. Justice Stevens serves as an example that we have a duty as members of the legal community to always remain steadfast in our commitment to justice and the rule of law. Whether we are arguing cases in a courtroom, negotiating settlements in a mediation, crafting legislation, or executing the same, it is our duty to be guided by the principles of honesty, fairness, and equality, as well as acceptance. That means we must embrace diversity, inclusion, and belonging within the legal profession, just as Justice Stevens recognized the need for a diverse and representative judiciary. It is incumbent on all of us to carry out this mission and ensure our profession reflects the rich and varied fabric of our society. Today, I implore each of you in honor of Justice Stevens to rededicate yourselves to the cause of justice and the protection of our Constitution. Finally, I again express my deepest gratitude and thanks to the Chicago Bar Association and the Stevens Award Committee for this honor. I'm privileged to be among such distinguished colleagues and look forward to the future of our profession. Thank you so very kindly.
Our next honoree is Daniel Coten. Dan is a founding shareholder and trial lawyer in the firm of Tomasik, Koten, Kasserman. His success in the courtroom has earned him top positions on several mass tort litigation steering committees, and his reputation has earned him elected leadership positions in various prestigious legal and civic organizations. Dan has been involved in the CBA since he first became a lawyer and joined the executive council of the Young Lawyer Section. Dan is also a former president of the CBA from 2016 to 2017, and he continues to support our organization in numerous ways, including serving on our membership committee. Dan is involved in numerous other organizations, including the National Conference of Bar Presidents, the American College of Trial Lawyers, the International Society of Barristers, and more locally, the Chicago Inn of Court. I am pleased to present my friend and a personal mentor, Dan Coten.
I grew up, and I'm on my way to growing old, at the Chicago Bar Association and Chicago Bar Foundation. And I'll tell you that the most fulfilling work that I've done outside of my law practice has been with these organizations. Besides my wife, Jean, and my law partners, some of the very best friends that I've made over the past 3 decades are folks that I've met at and with the CBA. So when Beth McMean called me and told me that I would be receiving a John Paul Stevens Award, it literally took my breath away. In my mind, there is no greater honor at the Chicago Bar Association than a Stevens Award. Justice Stevens was the consummate Chicago attorney and judge. He might be our city's proudest contribution to the legal profession in America. And for me, almost as great an honor as it is to receive an award in Justice Stevens' name is sharing it with the 5 other great lawyers on today's program. Congratulations to all of you. I think I've been at most Stevens luncheons over the past 23 years. And so in addition to today's awardees, the list of past recipients is truly humbling. Why'd you pick me? Justice John Paul Stevens truly loved this organization. He interrupted his busy schedule on the court, and he later defied the limitations of old age and flew to Chicago every year for this annual luncheon. But the one thing he loved more than the CBA was the Chicago Cubs. He often spoke of being at Wrigley Field in 1932 for Game 3 of the World Series against the Yankees. It was in the 5th inning of that game when Babe Ruth famously pointed to center field before hitting a home run to that exact spot on the next pitch. Justice Stevens kept the scorecard from that game in his chambers. Now, 7 years ago, I had the opportunity to host Justice Stevens at this luncheon. And in honor of his love for the Cubs and being at that famous game, we arranged for him to be given the 1932 National League pennant banner, which had flown above Wrigley Field. I hear that Justice Stevens kept the banner and the scorecard with him until he died. So I think I just answered my own question. Unlike my fellow awardees who earned this recognition through years of distinguished service to the community, I think it was the gift of that 1932 pennant banner that led to me being here today. Regardless of the reason, thank you to the CBA and CBF for one of the greatest honors I've ever received.
Our next honoree is Professor Ann Lucine. Professor Lucine is an acknowledged expert on the Illinois Constitution. After receiving her JD in 1968, Professor Lucine served as a research assistant at the 6th Illinois Constitutional Convention. After serving as staff assistant to the Speaker of the Illinois House of Representatives, she joined the faculty of the John Marshall Law School, now the UIC School of Law. Outside the law school, she served in governmental positions and on charitable boards. We are very fortunate that she's been an active member of the CBA for over 50 years. I am very pleased to present Professor Ann Lucine.
I was totally surprised, indeed shocked, to receive the phone call telling me that the CBA had chosen me to receive a Justice John Paul Stevens Award. Despite my 53-year involvement with the CBA, I never thought of myself as being in the same league as the previous awardees. I thank you from the bottom of my heart. I have never once, not for an instant, regretted going to law school. Being a lawyer has been my life. It has enabled me to serve the people of Illinois and the students I've taught. It has opened all the doors I've walked through. Let me say something about Justice John Paul Stevens. He was a treasure, one of the giants in law, and an exemplary public servant. But when I first interacted with him, it was under odd circumstances. In 1974, I assisted the Illinois House of Representatives in defending a provision of the Illinois Constitution in federal court. Justice Stevens presided over a 3-judge panel that heard the case. He was unfailingly courteous and fair to all. Then he wrote an opinion saying that both sides lost. Moreover, he fixed it so that neither party could appeal. 2 years later, he became a Supreme Court justice. The Phi Delta Phi fraternity was just granting the John Marshall Law School a charter to form a new chapter, the John Paul Stevens chapter. The students asked me to be their faculty sponsor, and I've held that position for 47 years. When Justice Stevens visited the law school, he met with the chapter. I reminded him of our case. He remembered it vividly. He laughed and admitted that his moves were deliberate. The funny thing is that shortly after he retired from the court, it rendered a decision that probably overruled his opinion and validated my argument in 1974. So, Justice Stevens, I may have the last word, sir.
Our next honoree is Mary Smith. Mary is the president of the American Bar Association and is the first Native American woman in this role. Mary has served at the highest levels of government, both at the federal and state level. She also has a great deal of experience in the private sector. Mary has served in leadership roles in state, local, and of course, national bars. Mary founded and serves as president and chair of a foundation named after her mother and grandmother, respectively, the Caroline and Ora Smith Foundation, to train Native American girls in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. I am pleased to present Mary Smith.
It's an immense honor to be here today to accept the Justice John Paul Stevens Award. I am deeply grateful to the Chicago Bar Association, the Chicago Bar Foundation, Dan Cotter, Judge Wright, and the entire award committee for recognizing not just me, but the spirit and dedication and service that our profession demands. And it is humbling to be receiving this award along with my fellow honorees, Dan Boho, Professor Ann Lousin, Barry Taylor, and my dear friends Dan Coten and Patricia Brown Holmes. This award embodies the spirit and dedication of Justice Stevens, a Chicagoan whose journey through law has left an indelible mark on our profession and the nation. For many, he is a symbol of the past, woven into the fabric of Chicago's storied history. Yet his legacy also illuminates our path forward, guiding the future not only of the legal profession, but also of the very foundations of our democracy. Growing up on the south side of Chicago, where my father did not even graduate high school, the corridors of law seemed worlds away from the towering legacy of figures like Justice Stevens. Yet, like many of us, the winding path of life has a way of leading us to unexpected destinations. Justice Stevens was a beacon of independent thought, a quality that remains constant throughout the history of courts in our country. Even from their earliest time, as our country became increasingly divided, he continued to be doggedly independent. Many of his separate writings emerged from a sound Midwestern judgment, something to which all of us can relate. Today, our very democracy is under attack, with our courts often on the front lines. Our democracy depends on fair and independent courts to protect against abuses of power, provide checks and balances, and administer justice without regard to outside pressures. Yet the very independence of our judiciary has been threatened. Justice Stevens maintained his compass of independence throughout his time on the court. Today, we are called upon to be champions of justice and defenders of democracy. Now, more than ever, it's our collective duty as guardians of Americans' justice system to champion its independence, ensuring that justice remains unbiased and unfettered. I urge all of you to stand up for this renewed call. Thank you so much again for this incredible honor.
Our final honoree today is Barry Taylor. Barry is the Vice President for Civil Rights and Systemic Litigation at Equip for Equality, where he has worked since 1996 to advance the human and civil rights of people with disabilities in Illinois. Prior to coming into Equip for Equality, and as the first openly gay president of the CBA, I'm particularly proud of this, Barry was the AIDS Project Attorney in the Midwest Regional Office of Lambda Legal, working to advance the civil rights of people living with HIV and AIDS in the 90s. Barry impacts lives with his service on numerous task forces and boards, including the Disability Rights Consortium, National Association of Protection and Advocacy Systems, Governor's Task Force for Employment and Economic Opportunity for People with Disabilities, and the Disability Court Access Committee of the Administrative Office of Illinois Courts. I'm very pleased to present Barry Taylor.
Thank you. It's an honor to receive an award named for Justice Stevens, as he is a real hero in the disability community. Justice Stevens wrote the first Supreme Court opinion interpreting the Americans with Disabilities Act in a case involving a woman with HIV who was denied dental services. In finding that she had a disability under the ADA, Justice Stevens not only held that she had a legal right to address the discrimination she experienced, but also provided access to justice to thousands of other people with disabilities facing discrimination. Thank you to the Chicago Bar Association, the Chicago Bar Foundation, especially Bob Glaves and his current and past staff at the CBF, who've always been so supportive of me, Equip for Equality, and the broader legal aid community. Thank you also to my Equip for Equality family. It's been a real privilege working with all of you over the years to advance the civil and human rights of people with disabilities. And given our collaborative approach to disability justice, I accept this honor on behalf of all of us. I also want to thank and acknowledge the many people I've collaborated with over the years, including our pro bono attorneys, other public interest and disability organizations, and most importantly, our clients with disabilities who've taught me so much. I'm grateful to my dad for instilling a strong work ethic in me, and my mom for modeling empathy. I'm also grateful to my husband Marv and our two kids, Molly and Hudson, for their support of my work, but also for giving me an incentive to close my laptop and make sure I experience life beyond the law. Often when we talk about civil rights, disability is left out of the conversation. And that's unfortunate because in our society, people with disabilities face discrimination, inequities, segregation, and abuse and neglect on a daily basis. I'm hopeful that the work we've done at Equip for Equality for the past 27 years has not only shined a light on these important issues, but also provided remedies, real solution, and systemic relief to move us closer to that ultimate goal of access to justice for all people. Thank you very much. This means the world to me.
Thank you again to President Jenkins-Wright and the joint CBA-CBF Select Committee for choosing such distinguished honorees for the 2023 Justice John Paul Stevens Awards. Most importantly, I want to thank our extraordinary honorees for the tremendous contributions to our legal profession and our community. Finally, thank you everyone for joining us today.